Okay, so yesterday, when we read, we found out that the setting was Grandma's house in the country in the present. So it's Grandma's house in the country in the present. It didn't happen in the past. It didn't happen in the future. Yes, Victoria?
I forgot to write summer.
And it's summer. It's summer at Grandma's house in the country in the present. So now we're figuring out, okay, what's the plot? What are the events? And then we're going to make inferences, which is educated guesses based on what we've read, as to what that character's reaction to the plot is. So we are working with setting, plot, and character traits because their character traits are what lead them to have these reactions. So on page 121, please read Smith. Loud and slow. Let me make sure the volume's all the way up. I think it is. Yes.
Though it was covered with leaves and branches, now I could tell that it was a raft. What was it doing floating down the river all by itself, I wondered. I reached down and pushed some of the leaves aside. Beneath them was a drawing of a rabbit. It looked like those ancient cave paintings I'd seen in books. Just outlines, but wild and fast and free.
Good. So we already talked about how the way Grandma talked after dinner, she said, maybe you'll catch something. But she didn't show him where to fish or how to fish in order to catch fish. So we figured, maybe she wasn't talking about a fish. Has he caught something? Yes, it wasn't a fish. Maybe Grandma knew. I don't know. Let's keep reading to see if we can find out more information about that. Smith, go ahead and keep reading.
I cleaned away more leaves, and it was like finding presents under the Christmas tree. A bear, a fox, a raccoon, all with the wild look of the rabbit. Who had drawn them, I wondered? Where had the raft come from?
You can go ahead and read that last sentence.
I ran up to the cottage. Grandma was on the porch reading.
So, before this, we didn't really see Nikki's reaction to much other than being at Grandma's house. But was being at Grandma's house an event that happened, or is that the setting? Cullen?
That's the setting.
That's the setting. So it wasn't something that we're going to write here because we're writing our characters' reactions to events that happen in the story. He was upset. He had a reaction to the setting, but that doesn't really lead us to the plot. But now we have something that happened that he reacted to. What has happened? What is the event? Don't tell me his reaction, but what is the event that has now happened? Kingston. Nikki found a raft. Very good. So that's our first event. Nikki found a raft. Now for the character's reaction, we're looking for something that the character does because of this event, something that he feels because of this event, or something that he realizes because of this event. So Kingston, has Nikki done, felt, or realized anything because of this event? What has he felt? Surprised? What else? Is he just like, okay, I know what that is? Or is he like, whoa, what is that? The second one. So what feeling is that when you're like, whoa, what is that? I have so many questions. What is that feeling called? Feeling, Nikki is curious, surprised, because he is like, whoa, I didn't expect this. Surprised means something unexpected happened. What else is he? Is he still like, oh, this is the worst ever. This is stupid. I hate this raft. This raft can just go away. Or is he like, whoa, this raft, how cool. Kingston? Happy, but really more than happy. He's not just happy. What? Excited. He's curious, surprised, and excited. Remember, we want to use interesting words. Is happy that interesting? No. But excited is a happy feeling, but it's a little more interesting. The word excited is a little more interesting than happy. Because happy could mean anything. Happy could just be like, oh, I'm just smiling today. But excited really helps you picture how he's happy. There's different ways to be happy, and excited is a way to be happy where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for what comes next. But if you're just regular happy, well, you could just be like, I don't even have a reason, I just feel happy today. Excited says there's a reason for it. So excited is just a more detailed way to say that somebody is happy. Good, Kingston. Okay. Do we have any other events to write about yet? No. Aaron, please read next.
Do you have some rope I can use? I asked. In the shed, honey, she said. Help yourself. She didn't ask me what I needed it for, and I decided not to tell her yet.
Pause. Why do you think, what's Nikki's reason for not telling his grandmother about the raft? What do you think his reason is? There's not a wrong answer, because do we know the reason? Does it say Nikki decided not to tell her yet because blah, 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 blah? So is there necessarily a wrong answer to that? No, that's called making inferences. You are making educated guesses based on what you know about Nikki, what you know about Grandma, and what you know about what's happening so far. So there is no right or wrong answer unless you just guess, because in making inferences is not just a guess. It's an educated guess based on what you read, what you know, and then you put it together. So why do you think Nikki, what do you think his motivation or his reason for not telling Grandma about the raft yet is? Aaron?
He may have not wanted to share it.
Maybe he didn't want to share this raft. Okay, Victoria, do you have another answer? That's not wrong.
Maybe he wanted to surprise her.
Maybe he wanted to surprise her with it. Those are both great answers. Does anybody else have another answer? Zari.
Maybe he thought that she would, since she told him, well, you go ahead and try to find something. Maybe he thought that she already knew about it.
Maybe he thought she already knew about it. Okay? Kingston?
Maybe he thought she put her out there so he could find it.
Maybe he thought she put it there so he could find it. So her whole reason is so that he can be happy and excited and curious.
So like had a plan up.
Maybe he knows that maybe he realizes she already had a plan. Colin?
He just said what I was thinking.
Carla?
That there's like many pictures that Nikki and know that there are many pictures and maybe Grandma had drawn them.
Okay, good. So yes, do you see how there's really not a wrong answer to that? As long as you think about what's happening, as long as you think about the characters and you put all that together in your head, there really isn't a right answer at this point. Now, we may find out that our inferences weren't correct, but we don't have enough information to say whether our inferences are correct or not. So it's okay to get it wrong in the moment, because at least you're thinking. At least you're thinking. If we don't know the final answer yet, is your answer wrong as long as you thought about it? No. That's what scientists do all the time. They have to guess They have to make an educated guess. They have to make inferences, or hypothesize is the science way of saying it, about what's going to happen. They have to have an idea of what they think might happen based on other things in order to find out what really happened. But a lot of times they get it wrong. It's the same with reading, but that's okay because that helps us learn to think and make inferences about what might happen next. Even if those inferences turn out to be wrong, still get you thinking and wondering, and it makes you want to read more to find out, are you right? So let's find out. Maybe he wants to keep this discovery to himself. Maybe he wants to make a decision for once. Grandma gets to make the decisions about everything else because she's a grown-up. Well, this time he can decide what to do with this raft. So he's got something that he knows about. He's excited about it. Don't you like when you kind of know something before everybody else? If it's a good thing? Yeah. And you're kind of excited. You do want to tell people eventually. But for that little bit of time when you know something that nobody else does, you get to feel happy about it and glad about it. You're like, I know about this surprise. And nobody else knows yet. And I get to see the look on their face when they find out. Because when you're surprised, you're not really looking at everybody else's face. But when you know it, you get to see the excitement on everybody else's face. So maybe that's why he doesn't want to tell her yet. Victoria, quickly.
So this is another option why he doesn't want to tell her which one. Maybe she already knows because maybe when she was a little girl, she had that raft and she was still living at that house.
Maybe.
And she lost it and he finally caught it.
And maybe he's excited. He wants to present it to her, but he doesn't want to do it yet. Maybe. That's a really good. Okay, we've got to move on. We can make inferences all day long, and that's fine. But unfortunately, we only have a certain amount of time. But when you're reading in your own book, you can be doing this. Do you see it's kind of fun to make inferences and to be like, I wonder if this is going to happen next, or I wonder if this is going to happen next. I think this is going to happen. Let's find out if I'm right. Well, while you're doing your reading, you can be doing that the whole time and trying to guess what happens next based on what has already happened. And that's what you should be doing while you're reading. That's going to make reading so much more enjoyable. It's going to make it make so much more sense. It's going to help you on the AR quizzes. And it's going to help you with your work when you're doing it in science or social studies or whatever. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. Erin, was it you?
Yes.
Okay, so keep going. Good, that was a really good discussion. Let's have more of those. Okay.
I pushed the raft into the weeds along the river edge.
A little louder.
I pushed the raft into the weeds along the river edge. Then I tied it to a dock so it wouldn't drift away. All the while, birds flew over my head, every now and then swooping down to the raft as if it were a friend. A crane
Cover up the D. Excuse me. Just the D. And what word do you have?
waved,
So if you add the D sound at the end, it becomes,
waving.
there you go. Wading, when you wade in water, that's like where you walk through it and it's like up to your knees. It's not super deep. You can walk in it, but you're kind of wading through. That's what that word means.
A crane waded through water,
Oh, waded through.
waded.
It's okay.
A crane waded through the weeds to it. A turtle swam up from the bottom of the river. The moon had risen yellow over the river. By the time I went up to the cottage to go to bed.
Good. So how has Nikki's feelings changed? How have Nikki's feelings changed from the beginning of the story? Zari, how did he feel at the beginning of the story?
He was like, I don't want to go to Grandma's house.
He was
This
really
is
upset.
gonna be boring.
He was bored. He was upset. He didn't want to do it. And then at first, what was happening that made him feel like he was correct? What was happening at first before this raft showed up? What was he having to do all the time?
He was having to do chores.
He
and
was
chores
having to do
and
chores. Lots and lots of chores. So did that make him feel any better about the summer, Zari?
No.
No, but now something changed. He found this raft. So his feelings have changed. How does he feel now that he found this raft?
He's more of like, I didn't know that Grandma's could be much fun than I thought.
So he's starting to get excited. Everything is starting to look more interesting. Have you noticed how before this point, we didn't really see much description about the animals or anything like that? And the description that we did have, like the description of Grandma's house being messy and cluttered, were not very good descriptions. It didn't sound like a fun place to be. We didn't really hear much about the animals. What we heard about Grandma's house was that it was messy and cluttered and boring. But now he's found this raft and his feelings have changed. And look at that second to last paragraph that says, I pushed the raft into the reeds. We hear a lot more description about the animals and the wildlife. Does that make it sound like someplace you'd want to go? Yeah, definitely. I would love to see the turtles and the cranes and the birds. But before this, it was about the messy house and the chores he had to do, and how upset and bored he was because there was no fish biting. But now all of a sudden, we see these happy descriptions because his feelings are changing. That's what authors do. They make it boring so that you can really feel how the character feels. Well, now he's getting excited. So the author is trying to make us excited. Because an author's purpose of writing a story like this is to make us feel what the characters are feeling. That's what makes us want to keep reading. Okay, turn the page. And read next, me. Follow along. We're on page 123. I was already down at the dock the next morning when Grandma appeared with a life jacket and a long pole. She didn't seem surprised by the raft at all, or by the animal pictures all over it. What does that paragraph tell us? Why do you think Grandma isn't surprised to see the raft? Victoria.
She probably has already seen it before.
She's already seen it before. Why is she not surprised by the animal pictures?
Because she probably drew that.
Yes, you and Carla both made that inference. So do you see how your inferences were correct? What made you think that maybe she had drawn, let's see, Carla and Victoria, because you both told me this. I think you told me. What made you think that maybe she had drawn the pictures before?
Because she was an artist.
How do you know she was an artist?
Because when Nikki was talking about all the pictures and the carved bear and the carved
Mm-hmm. So Victoria, so Carla, do you have something to add to that? Because you also made that inference.
Maybe if she lived here with her mom and dad.
Okay.
And,
Well, what I'm asking, Carla, is what in the story, what happened in the story that made you think, I bet Grandma drew those pictures on the raft, Carla? What in the story happened that made you think, I bet it was Grandma who drew those pictures?
because whenever I saw when it talked about that bear,
Uh-huh.
it kind of made me think maybe if we keep going, maybe when he find the raft, I maybe thought that Grandma drew it.
Good, because earlier in the story, there was text evidence, an important word, text evidence, that Grandma liked art. She had sketches that she drew. She had maps that she drew. She had a bear that she carved. So that says, oh, when he found the raft, there were drawings all over it. I already feel like Grandma knew about this raft because of the way she talked when she said maybe you'll catch something. And I know she's an artist, so I bet she not only knew about this raft, but it was maybe her raft and she drew those pictures. Very good. That's making inferences. That's taking what you know and making an educated guess about what's happening now and what will happen next. Again, we can talk about this all day, but we only have like 30 more minutes, and we have more than half the story left. So I'm sorry, I know it's exciting, and this is what you can do. Do you see how exciting this is? You can do this all the time. Anytime you read, you can be thinking about these things and coming up with new ideas and seeing if they're right. Carla and Victoria, we've already discovered that part of your inferences were correct. It does sound like Grandma drew these pictures because she's not surprised. It doesn't say Grandma drew the pictures, but it says she's not surprised to see them. Okay, very good. Keep going. Whoever was reading, me. Okay. How did you know? I started. Let's go, Grandma interrupted, tossing me the life jacket and stepping onto the raft. She pushed the pole hard into the river bottom, and we moved smoothly into the current. Your turn, she said after a few minutes. She showed me how to use the pole and push, and I pulled us to the middle of the river. Even there, the water wasn't over my head. So let's go back to this. Why do you think Grandma let Nicky find the raft on his own instead of just telling him about it? Now we know because Nicky says, "How did you know?" Grandma doesn't answer, but it's obvious that she knows. Why do you think Grandma let Nicky find the raft instead of telling him about it? Zari?
Maybe because she saw that he wasn't having fun at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So she kept quiet and let him find it himself.
Why?
So he could be excited. And
Well, why do you think that she thought if I show him this, he's not going to be excited? But if I let him find it, maybe he'll be excited. So what I'm asking is, not why did Grandma let him see it, but why did Grandma let him find it instead of telling him about it? Aaron.
She probably let him find it instead of just telling him about it because maybe if she let him find it, he'd be more excited about coming to her.
Okay. So again, that's why, but you guys are still answering that same question. I'm saying why, the question that you guys are answering is, why did Grandma let him find the raft? Which you are correct, so that he'd be excited. But the question I am asking, so the question you're answering is, why did Grandma let him find the raft? But the question I'm asking, listen to this question. Why did Grandma let Nicky find the raft on his own instead of saying, "Hey, Nicky, look at this raft. You should try this"? Why did she let him find it on his own instead of telling him about it? It's not in the book. You have to make inferences. Victoria?
Because when she was a little girl, she probably lost it, but she knew about it, and like you said, that she didn't quite meant that go catch a fish, but maybe.
Well, that just tells us that she did know about it. But it really sounds like she made sure in that moment he found it. So she probably knew where it was the whole time. But instead of just giving it to him, she let him find it. Aaron, try again and then I'll help you out. She let him find it instead of telling him about it. Why?
Maybe she wanted him to know how to do things on his own.
Okay. She wanted him to know how to do things on his own instead of having to be told. Okay, that's a good answer. Smith, you want to try? That works. It's not quite the answer I'm looking for, but that definitely works. That could definitely be a reason. But there's one answer I'm kind of looking for. Smith.
Maybe he likes to find his surprises, so maybe maybe his grandmother said to do that so that he could kind of have a scavenger hunt.
Okay, good. That's definitely more of what I'm looking for. Because, yes, is it a surprise if somebody tells you? No, it's just they told you something. Finding something exciting is the surprise. Do you think, based on how Nikki felt about his grandma and her house, if she had told him about it, do you think he'd be that excited, or he'd be more like, oh, grandma told me about this and she's so boring, so there's no way it can be fun? Colin? He might be more like, ugh, another dumb thing at grandma's house. But because he found it, it was a surprise. Surprises are much more exciting than somebody telling you something. If you get told you're going to Disney World, well, that's really fun. But if your parents are like, we're going on a trip to Grandma and Grandpa's house, and then you end up at Disney World, how much more excited are you going to feel? You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I thought we were just going to Grandma and Grandpa's house, which is fun, but not that fun. And now we're at Disney World. So surprises, when you find things out on your own, it is a surprise, which are much more exciting than just being told something. Good. Okay. Let's see. Go ahead and read next. Colin.
We pulled the raft up the river, then let it slowly drift back down. The birds kept us company the whole time. Snoring.
Not snoring. There's no N. Cover up ing. And what word is that? Cover up ing, and what word is that?
Soar.
Soar. So add ing to the end, and it becomes?
Soaring, whooping, singing. Some even lay on the raft.
Not laid. Go slow, Colin, and louder. Some even
landed.
Cover the ed. What word do you have?
Land.
Add ed to the end.
Landed on the raft and rode with us for a while.
It's a compound word. So read the first word, and it is? Hitch, not hit, because it's C-H-I-H-I-K-E-R a word. So H-I-T-C is?
Hitch.
Cover up hitch, and you have?
Hikers.
So put those two words together, and you have?
Hitchhikers, Grandma called them.
Keep going.
After that, I had little time for anything but the raft. I raced through whatever chores there were, then ran down the dock, wondering what animals I'd seen that day.
So his mood has definitely changed. He didn't want to do anything at the beginning of this story, and now he can't wait to get back to that raft. He is so excited he is running. We can imagine that before he found this raft, he walked around like this. With his shoulders down, slow, head down, frown on his face. Slow, not really moving, lumbering along. That's one of our vocabulary words. But now he's running. So he's definitely excited. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Thank you, Cullen. Read next. Zari, loud and slow.
It wasn't just birds. The raft.
Not the. Don't skip words, Zari.
It wasn't just the birds that the raft attracted. One morning, 3 raccoons followed me along the shore. Another time, a turtle climbed on board and spent the morning sunning itself. And one afternoon, I saw a family of foxes slipped through the trees along the river.
Pause. So usually when animals see people, they run away. Why do you think these animals are so unafraid of the raft? They're unafraid. They're not afraid. They're unafraid of the raft. They're coming. They're sitting on it. They're not running away from it. Let's see. Victoria.
So when the grandma was a little girl, the animals, she probably tried to talk to them and she saw them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she started to draw like a rabbit or animal.
And why do you think that made them not afraid of the raft? So Victoria just said that maybe when the grandma was a little girl, she used to ride on the raft and see all the animals. Why do you think that made them unafraid of this raft and the people on it?
Because the animals probably thought that she really liked animals because she was out looking, trying to talk to them, drawing them.
Do you think she was disturbing them? No. So good. The animals have probably seen the raft before. And they know that the raft and the people on it are not going to hurt them. They're just there to observe. And when we observe, do we touch and feel? No, we're not supposed to unless we're allowed. But with wild animals, should we touch and feel and go near? No, definitely not. Okay, very good. Let's see. Keep reading, Zari.
When the weather turned too hot and sticky to sleep indoors, Grandma helped me put up a small tent on the raft. I lay on top of the coral sheet and read comic books by flashlight until I fell asleep. One night, a noise woke me up. There in the moonlight stood a huge buck. He looked right at me, then lowered his head to drink as if he wasn't there.
Not as if
at
he,
all.
but as if. Not as if he. It's as if.
As if I wasn't there at all.
Very good. So notice how the author is starting to include some very descriptive details about the animals. She's doing that, or he, I think it's a she. Yeah, she's probably doing that so that we can imagine this in our head. So if we didn't have this picture, which a lot of books don't have pictures. A lot of the books, especially that you're reading now, don't have pictures. So what authors need to do in order to make it interesting is they need to create, or they need to write words that help us to create a picture in our head. If we didn't have these pictures, we'd be able to see these because of the way the author describes them. We'd be able to see the turtle on the raft sunning himself. We'd be able to see this really big buck in the moonlight because she includes all of these descriptions. She doesn't just say there was a buck. She says there was a huge buck in the moonlight. So we can picture in our head, you know what it looks like to be outside at night when the moon is really bright. We know what a buck looks like. We know the author told us he's big. So we can picture that really big buck, which is a male deer, in the moonlight if we just close our eyes. Or some of us can picture it with our eyes open. Very good. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Thank you, Zari. Aaron, please read next.
I found Grandma next morning.
A little louder.
I found Grandma next morning working on her bear blanket. Do you have some extra paper I could draw in? I asked
A little louder.
her. She brought out a big sketch pad and a pouch filled with thick pencils and crayons. I've been saving these just for you, she said. Better take these too. She held out the snorkel and mask. Never know what they might come in handy on the raft.
go ahead and read that next paragraph and then stop.
The sun was hot that afternoon, so I
Cover up the D. What is that word? Add the D sound at the end.
So I crawled into the shade of the willow. Then waited to see what animals the raft would bring. It wasn't long before a great green heron whooshed down with a crayfish in its bill.
So pause. So Nikki has been inspired to do something. He asks his grandma for some paper. He takes some pencils and crayons. He's been inspired to do what? We haven't seen him do anything, but we know the fact he's asking for paper and he's bringing writing or drawing utensils. What has he been inspired to do? Carla.
Draw.
Draw what, do you think?
Animals.
Draw the animals. Why do you think he was inspired to draw the animals? So we know he's asking for paper, he's bringing crayons and pencils. So we know he's been inspired to draw. Well, inspired means something made you want to do something. So what inspired him or made him want to draw? Zari.
Maybe how he saw how there were animals on the raft. He just wanted to have pictures of them.
Good. So he saw these animals, and how did they react to him? How did the animals react to Nikki? Colin?
Okay.
So they weren't what? What are animals usually? Like wild animals are usually what when they see people? Scared. Well, were these animals scared?
No.
No. So what's the next event that happened in our story? We just learned he was inspired to draw. So that's not the next event, because what event led to that reaction? Victoria.
He found Grandma next morning, and he asked if he could draw.
Well, he was inspired to draw, but that's not what happened next. That's his reaction. Nikki is inspired to draw the animals. The event that inspired him is not that he asked for paper, because he didn't ask for paper until after he had been inspired to draw the animals. What event led him to want that paper and to bring those crayons and pencils down to the raft? Smith.
Seeing all the animals on the raft and like everywhere else.
And then what especially? Because normally when animals see people, they run away or swim away or fly away. But these animals didn't. Because not only did he see all of these animals, but what specifically made him think, oh, they're going to stick around long enough for me to draw them? Smith?
That they weren't scared of him.
Good. So, the animals aren't afraid of Nikki. His reaction is, oh, well, they're going to stick around long enough for me to draw pictures of them. So I'm going to ask for some paper, and I'm going to bring some crayons and pencils, and while they sit there, while that turtle sits there sunning himself, or that bird sits on the shore just watching me, or that buck stands in the moonlight watching me, I'm going to draw them. Okay. Carla, read next.
The sun was hot.
We already read that, Carla.
I grabbed a pencil and began to sketch.
Go a little slower. You're doing well, but go just a little slower. Okay, Carla, sorry. Start that paragraph again.
I grabbed a pencil and began to sketch. I felt invisible as the bird
Not plainly.
calmly
Good, calmly.
ate its lunch right in front of me. When it pleasant,
No, go. Cover up the ed and sound that word out, Carla. We have Preend. So let's chunk it, Carla. Cover up everything but the PR. And how would you say PR? Pr. Now EE. How would you say EE? E. So, and then how would you say? No wait. How would you say N? How would you say N, Carla? And then ED at the end just sounds like duh. So if you have ED at the end, it sounds like duh. So if we put pr, e, n, duh. Pr, e, n, duh. Pr, e, n, duh. Pr, e, n, duh. Preened. What is it? Preened, not preeding. There's no ing. Preened, Carla. Carla, preened. Preened with an N sound. There's an N sound. Preened. There you go. That means like clean. When a bird kind of picks at its feathers with its beak, that's called preening. Yep, like that, Smith. Like it picks at its feathers. It's kind of cleaning out its feathers. That's what preening is, or preened. So it's cleaning its feathers. So go ahead and read that sentence again.
When it preened its feather, it looked up.
Okay, Carla, use your finger, please, because it doesn't say when. It says, so you're adding other words to make when make sense. But that doesn't say when, so we can't add words to make it make sense. It should already make sense. So if you're having to add words, that means you need to go back and read it again. Because it doesn't say when, it says
Look back up.
no, it says not, you said when it preened. It doesn't say when it preened. Go back to the beginning of that sentence. It says
Then it preened its feathers. Looked back up at the river and flew off.
okay, but remember it doesn't say looked back up at the river. Or it doesn't say looked back up at the river. It just says looked back up the river. Okay, keep going.
That night I showed my drawing to Grandma. Not bad, she said. Not bad at all. And she tacked it on the wall on top of one of her sketches.
Very good, except it says one of her own sketches. Okay, so let's turn the page. Thank you, Carla.
Mrs. Wallace,
Yes, Carla.
I have speech therapy tomorrow.
Okay, well tell me about it later, okay? Because we're not done with reading.
Okay.
So,
Later.
yes.
Look, Brenda's got.
So go ahead and turn the page, and Cullen, read next.
One day, I pulled
That's the compound word,
upriver feathers.
not feathers. Go slow.
One day, I pulled up pier.
What? You just read that word. That's a compound word.
One day, I pulled up river farther than I'd ever been. Near a clump of tall
It's a compound word.
cattails, I startled and entered
There's no N. That's one of our vocabulary words.
Otter family. They dug under.
Dove. Remember that E at the end makes the vowel in the middle a long sound.
Then dove underwater, but as with the other animals, the raft seemed to clam.
Not clam.
Clam.
Not clam. The L comes after the A. Cover up the M, and that word kind of looks like what?
Call.
So now, but there's an M at the end, so it can't be call. It has to be
Calm
good.
them down. Soon they were playing all around me.
Good. So even though startled means like frightened, not badly, but just like, oh, I didn't see you there. So he kind of scared the otter family a little bit, but then they saw the raft, and did they stay afraid of him? No. They were like, oh, it's okay. It's like if your friend comes up behind, if you're really into something and then your friend comes up behind you and says, hey, and you might be like, whoa, I didn't even notice you there. But then once you see them, you're happy. You're not scared still. That's the same thing that happened with Nikki and the otter family. They got scared, but then they realized, they saw the raft and realized, oh, this person's okay. We got to keep going because we're going to run out of time. So Cullen, keep reading. We only have 12 minutes, but we can do it.
Grandma had been right about the mask and snorkel coming in her
Cover up the Y. And what word is that?
her
Cover up the Y. What word is that?
hand
Y at the end makes a long E sound, so that's the word.
handy.
There you go.
I split
No. Go slow. Use your finger. You know that word.
I splin
Cover up the PED. What word is that?
slip
Add the ED sound at the end.
id. I slipped id them.
Well, is it slip did?
I slipped them on, then hung my head over the raft and watched the otters play. Chasing fish, chasing each other, sometimes just chasing their own tails. I kept very still, but they didn't seem to mind me watching. They played keeping away with a small tone.
Not tone. What is it?
Stone.
There you go.
Then tug of war with a piece of rope. It was like they were showing off for me. They even let me feed them right out of my hand.
Good. You still have 10 minutes. Okay. Go ahead and turn the page. And Victoria, keep reading.
Some mornings,
A little louder.
Grandma would make a bag full of sandwiches and a thermos of
Not ice, but
icy lemonade.
there you go.
Then we put on our bathing suits, grab some towels, a lawn chair, and an inner tube, and pull up river to her favorite swimming spot. I've come swimming here since I was a girl, she told, as we tied the raft to an old dock.
Make sure you stop at all periods.
Marshalls
you go.
The mortals used to live here. All 10 of them. What? Wait.
Not wait. You were
What
right.
a herd of wild animals we are.
Not we are, but
We were.
there you go. Keep going.
Well, Grandma watched from the inner tube. I practiced my flying cannonballs. Then we eat our lunch and she tells me stories about growing up on the river. My favorite was the time she found a small black pearl inside a river plant. I still have it, she said. Somehow on the river it seemed like summer would never end, but of course it did.
So, at the beginning, we're not ready to turn the page yet. Do you think Nikki was excited, at the beginning of the story, do you think that Nikki was excited for summer to end? Do you think at the beginning of the story, do you think that Nikki was excited for summer to end? Cullen?
Yes.
Yes. He was like, let's get this over with. I hope it goes fast. I just want to go home with my dad where there's a TV and there's things to do. But at this point, do you think he's still excited for summer to end? Kingston? No. What changed his mind about the summer, Kingston? The raft. The raft and everything he saw and experienced while on the raft has completely changed his mind about Grandma's house. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. And thank you, Victoria. Oh, yes, you did get to finish. And Kingston, read next. Read loud and slow. Well, you read at a good pace, but read loud. We're on page 133.
On my last day, I got up extra early and crept down to the dock.
A little louder.
The air was cool and a low pearly fog hung over the lake. I untied the raft and thought I was drifting downstream.
So it's his last day. But he's making sure that he still has plenty of time with the raft, so he got up extra early so that he can spend all day on that raft on the river. Kingston, keep going. A little louder.
Ahead of me, through the fog, I saw two deer moving across the river, a doe and a fawn.
Keep going. You got it.
When they reached
Use your fingers so you don't lose your space.
When they reached the shore, the doe leaped easily up the steep bank, then turned to wait for the rage.
Pause. So we read about a buck, which is a male deer. Now we're reading about a doe and her fawn. A doe is a female deer, and a fawn is a baby deer. So now we know all about the names for the deer family. The dad is the buck, the mom is the doe, the baby is the fawn. Keep going, Kingston. But the fawn?
But the fawn was in trouble. It kept slipping down the muddy bank. Though it turned to water to help. But more fawn
A little louder.
But the more the fawn struggled, the deeper it got stuck in the mud.
Read that next little bit and then stop.
I pushed off the river bottom to throw the raft hard into the muddy bank, startling the doe. When I dropped into the water, it was ankle deep in the mud.
Good. Read next. Smith. Oops.
I pushed off.
Oh, we already read that. Kingston, but I'm sorry, you probably couldn't hear him, but Kingston did already read that. That's okay because you might not be able to hear everybody.
Yeah.
But we did already read that.
Okay. You're okay, I whispered to the fawn, praying that the raft would calm it. I won't hurt you. Gradually, the fawn stopped struggling as if it understood that I was there to help. I put my arms around it and pulled. It barely moved. I pulled again, then again. Slowly, the fawn eased out of the mud, and finally it was free. Carefully, I carried the fawn back up the bank to its mother.
Good. Go ahead and turn the page. And Smith, that was pretty short, so you can go ahead and keep reading.
Then, quietly, I returned to the raft. From there, I watched the doe nuzzle and clean her baby. And I knew what I had to do. I pulled the stub of a crayon from my pocket and drew the fawn in all its wildness onto the old gray boards of the raft. When I had finished, I knew it was just right.
So pause. We've got our next and last major event. What was the last major event that happened? Aaron? Nikki saved a baby deer. Because he saved this baby deer, he decided to do what? What did he do? What did he do because he saved this baby deer? He drew the fawn on the raft. Good. We're going to add another reaction but we just haven't gotten to it yet, but I wanted to make sure to cover that. But Smith, read that last sentence, or not the last sentence, but read that next sentence and then pause.
After supper, I showed Grandma my drawing of the fawn and told her my story.
Good. Miss Folis, read next. It's perfect, she said, but we need to do one more thing. She hurried up to the cottage. When she came back, she had tubes of oil paint and 2 brushes. Grandma helped me trace my drawing with the oil paint, which soaked deep into the wood. That'll keep it, she said. Now you'll always be a part of the river. Just like you, Grandma, I told her. A river rat. Grandma laughed. Just like me, she agreed. It was a man that wrote the story, not a girl. But anyway, so now because he saved the deer and drew the fawn on the raft, what is he now? He is what? Zari.
A river rat.
He's part of the river. He is a river rat. At the beginning, he is a part of the river. At the beginning, did he think being a river rat was a good thing? Class?
No.
No. He used it as almost an insult. It's not good to be a river rat. You're messy, you're dirty, you don't care about things, you're boring. But now, he's calling himself a river rat. Is he saying that in a mean way? Is he saying that being a river rat is bad now? No. Being a river rat is good, it's exciting, it's fun. Do you think if he has to come back next summer, he's going to feel how he did at the beginning of this trip? Definitely not. He's probably now going to look forward to all year getting to go back to Grandma's house. Very good. We don't have time to read about the author, but I want you to leave it open because as soon as you come back from music, you don't have to come back here, but I want you to read this about the author on your own. So this, go ahead and put it your setting flowchart, put it in your the reading side of Reading and Religion, then stand up and push your chair in.
Put on masks.